Once you've damaged a brand, there's no way to fix it, no matter how hard you try.
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
The Mandalorian just premiered its third season and people are talking, in a way that you probably aren't expecting. General sentiment for The Mandalorian is good. Scores are high with fans and critics, the merchandise is popular, and overall, people like The Mandalorian. But there's a group of people who are fed up with The Mandalorian for one of the strangest reasons ever. Star Wars has been a part of Disney Plus since its 2019 launch. After the debut of Mandalorian, Lucasfilm followed up with a lot of content. Some good, some bad, and some terrible. One show that's all three of those things is Andor, and some fans love it so much that it's ruining The Mandalorian for them. A vocal contingent of Star Wars fans are complaining that they can't enjoy The Mandalorian, and it's all Andor's fault. Several of the franchise's devotees took to Twitter following the release of The Mandalorian Season 3 debut episode, titled Chapter 17, The Apostate, to bemoan its perceived inferiority from Andor. Several tweets highlighted the supposed gap in storytelling quality between the two Star Wars shows, with one Twitter describing The Mandalorian's dialogue as weak in comparison to Andor. Another common refrain among disgruntled fans is that Andor set the bar way too high by putting a fresh slant on Star Wars, undermining The Mandalorian's more conventional approach to the franchise. On Twitter, people are saying this: "There's some great visual effects going on in the season premiere of The Mandalorian, but oh boy, the writing has become the worst thing about this show. After Andor, hard to ignore how weak this dialogue is, and the delivery isn't much better." Another tweet says, "Andor made me legit ready to battle fascist oppression and potentially..."
You serious?
Another impassioned tweet said, "Andor made me legit ready to battle fascist oppression at the potential cost of my life. The Mandalorian makes me want to buy a cute little plush toy. Personally, I prefer the Star Wars that challenges me to be something other than a man-child. But that's just me. Either way, Kofi, Star Wars is getting you to do multiple things it wants you to do." And here's a great one. "After watching and thoroughly enjoying Andor, I must admit, The Mandalorian is absolute crap. The apparent backlash to The Mandalorian Season 3's premiere stands as a stark contrast to professional critics' responses to the episode, which were largely positive. Reviews for Chapter 17, The Apostate, labeled it as an excellent start to the season and lauded it for capturing the vibe of Star Wars. Several critics also singled out the season opener's pacing for praise, although at least one pundit wished it went into light speed a little quicker. Fans voicing their dissatisfaction with The Mandalorian Season 3 debut episode also is at odds with series creator Jon Favreau's hopes for the virtual discourse surrounding the show. Favreau stated in an interview that his aim for The Mandalorian's third season is to have each of its 8 episodes spark enthusiastic engagement online. The goal is, I don't know about breaking the internet, but the goal is that we have enough things happen each episode that everybody wants to jump around the digital kitchen table and talk about and argue about, and guess what's going to happen next, he said. Favreau is also well aware that Star Wars fans' passion can be a double-edged sword. The showrunner recently said as much, alluding to instances where fan theories have made The Mandalorian's creative team second-guess their choices. However, Favreau added that he also appreciates the effort that goes into the Star Wars speculation online. "The good thing about our fans is that usually a tremendous amount of thought has gone into their conjecture," he said. Now, where the hell was I at? People were that into Andor? I watched that show every single week for the channel. I barely stayed awake, and we never finished the review. Why? Because it was a boring show that no one gave a shit about. Nobody. No one's asked us to finish our Andor review. No one asked us to talk about Andor. Who are these strange people on the internet? It's so weird because people were saying how terrible it was while it aired, but now it's considered great? People railed on it and it went away. Personally, I found it painfully slow at times. Other times, it was some of the best Star Wars content from Disney. That's not saying much, but anything is better than Rey Skywalker. At the end of the day, Andor wasn't interesting enough for us to watch or even recap. We watched the Star Wars Holiday Special instead of making that video. Infighting in fandom is a tale as old as time, but this is strange. No one's ever fought about Disney Star Wars because of how good it is. Probably because it hasn't been good since Disney bought it, and it used to be even greater back in the day, but that's a story for another time. If you want a video on why Star Wars is the greatest movie ever made, let me know down in the comments. I thought The Mandalorian was good enough, but it felt much more family-friendly and kiddie compared to what came before it. That's my concern. It's different. It's also the first episode, and Andor's first episode wasn't that great either. Pretty much dog shit compared to The Mandalorian's first season premiere. Andor wasn't great, but it was good at times. The people in this article are sort of biased, and that Kofi guy is a controversial writer from Screen Rant. Their takes are terrible, but his is worse. Where all of this falls apart for me is the characters. The Mandalorian is full of interesting characters. Mando, Grogu, Cara Dune. More on her in another video, don't worry. Carl Weathers, Queel, Bill Burr, and Luke Skywalker. The Mandalorian's characters are interesting, diverse, not in the identity politics way, the classic way, eclectic, memorable, and fun. Andor's cast was a bunch of boring, unlikable characters who exist only to die. Just like the lead. Mon Mothma's vanity is not interesting to me. This isn't Dangerous Liaisons. Hell, it's not even Cruel Intentions. Star Wars can be drama, Star Wars can be action, Star Wars can be horror, Star Wars can be anything, but Star Wars always has to be good. Both The Mandalorian and Andor are good enough at times, with Mando trampling Andor at times, and other times Andor beating Mando. The big problem with Andor is you know where it's going to go, and that kills the excitement. All roads lead to the Death Star, and what happens at the Death Star? Cool. Critics need to keep that in mind because the fans care, and without us, there's no reason to make any of this. I'll be paying close attention to all of this, but for now, it's hard to compare Andor to Mandalorian when Mandalorian's had more time. Just because Andor is serious doesn't make it superior. I'll take the high action and adventure of the Mandalorian any day of the week. The Mudhorn fight was great, brutal, expanded the lore of the Jawas, and a lot more. Andor gives us a look at the inner workings of the government and gives us two mama's boys battling out for intergalactic... What are they fighting for? Well, it sounds better than what's going on in the show. Fights in fandom are as old as time, and they won't be stopping anytime soon. This is just another part of the fandom. Sure, we can be divided over many things, but the one thing we all agree on is that Obi-Wan sucked. Thanks for watching today's video. Yes, it's over, but don't cry because there's more, a lot more from World Class Bullshitters, and there's only one way to get it. Hit that subscribe button below. When you do that, you'll get notifications and updates from World Class Bullshitters every time we go live. Basically, you won't miss anything. And if there's one thing I hate, it's FOMO. But the thing most people hate more than FOMO is fear of missing out on World Class Bullshitters, because there's just some things you can't undo. So folks, do yourselves a favor and never miss anything from World Class Bullshitters. One last thing before you go, hit the thumbs up button. Not for our egos, no, they're big enough as this, but it does help us fight the algorithm here, and well, it's man versus machine, and that's the real fight. But if that's not your battle, that's okay. There's one last way you can help WCBS, and that's going over to shopwcbs.com, picking up a t-shirt, a beer glass, a sweatshirt, a poster, all sorts of ways to back WCBS. The difference between us and other YouTube channels is I'm the artist that makes all this stuff, so if you enjoy art beyond t-shirts, you can even read our comic books. We got it all. We're called the epitome of pop culture for a reason, and no, again, it's not for our egos. So folks, make sure you're involved with every aspect of World Class Bullshitters, not just for us, but do it for yourself. We're making the change in entertainment everybody out there wants to see. And a special thank you goes out to all of our wonderful patrons who make this content possible. Go to patreon.com/worldclassbs to get involved and help out the channel.